Hello, my name is Joshua Darmanin. I am a student currently enrolled at Florida State College at Jacksonville in the Associate in Science, focusing in Computer Information Technology. As part of that program, this semester I enrolled in the CIS 1942 Internship course, and one of the requirements of that course is an oral presentation. This video is being made to meet that requirement. One of the most difficult aspects of the internship course is actually acquiring an internship. I applied at around 40 different companies, whether they had posted internship opportunities or just general inquiries for any possible placements, and was unable to get a position anywhere. Fortunately, through the help of some of the staff at FSCJ, I was recommended a company called Grunsky Technologies Inc., or GTI. After contacting them and setting up an interview and a benchmark test, I was able to procure an internship. GTI is a small company. They have one location, around 10 employees, and they style themselves as the all-around IT solutions firm. Whatever your information technology need be it networking, surveillance systems, installation or removal of systems, any sort of hardware or software support, any custom builds, diagnosis, repair, anything that you need regarding a computer system, they will assist you with. And so moving into GTI, I wanted to set myself three major goals that I would get out of it before I left it. Firstly, I wanted experience. I do not have a lot of experience. My current career aspirations are on the computer programming side of things, the software side. And I have very little hardware experience. I've never built my own PC. I've never taken one apart from in a college hardware class. And I'm sure we're all quite aware those are not usually the most current of models. So I wanted to get my hands on a variety of different machines through different manufacturers with different operating systems and different components, and just understand how they all connect together, how they work. What are some of the capabilities? What are some of the limitations? Just get my hands dirty. The second goal that I set myself was to practice and improve my communication skills. Whilst primarily this was leaning towards the technical side of things, so the lingo, the abbreviations, the jargon, understanding how to communicate that with fellow technicians, it was also important to practice my sort of interpersonal communication skills, reading body language, unspoken things like that. Because the way that the industry is now, if you are going to work in a position, you are most likely going to work on a team. And if you are not an effective communicator on that team, you are not going to be able to contribute to that team. So I wanted to practice those skills and bring them into a real workplace environment. The third aspect that I wanted to get out of this internship, or goal that I set for myself, was to gain more confidence with these systems. I've already mentioned that I had very little experience with them, and I have been terrified that if I get my hands on something, not only will I break something, whatever I break will be the most expensive component of that machine. And you can't have that kind of fear when you're dealing with these machines if you're going to deal with them in your everyday life. So I wanted to get the experience and turn that into confidence, turn that into the knowledge of how these things work together, understand that, and be able to say, oh, you got a problem, mate? Let me take a look. I can fix it for you. So working at GTI, I had primarily 4 responsibilities or tasks that I was assigned to. Any sort of assembly of any new custom builds, as well as disassembly, making sure that the standard run-ins were proceeding, and I'll explain those in a little bit, assisting in any sort of hardware replacement that we had ongoing, as well as maintaining the general service progression of all tickets. So with the assembling, periodically we would get customers come in and require or request a certain build, such and such video card, such and such motherboard, such and such RAM, such and such CPU. And GTI would go out to the third-party vendors and purchase those components, assemble them, test them, run them in, install any sort of operating system and software that the client needed, and basically just get that computer to a point where that customer could come in, take it home, plug it in, turn it on, that's it. They would not need to do anything else with that. This terrified me, because these sort of custom builds were typically higher end builds. These would be $700 graphics card, $400 cards of RAM. So me, with my confidence, no. With my experience, no. I was terrified of these custom builds. Fortunately, or perhaps through the great planning of the guys at GTI, before I worked on any of these custom builds, they had me work on the disassembly. And this was something they would work on periodically. They would get either donated machines or machines that were moved out of an empty corporate office, things that were too old to be kind of refurbished for resale. They would have to be discarded of, but according to federal and state guidelines. And so the recycling, the electronic recycling plants that deal with these components actually pay more for the individual components than they do for the case as a whole, the system as a whole. And so from GTI's perspective, this is a no-brainer, take it all apart. So I got to take apart on that first day like 10 different systems. This was a perfect opportunity for me to kind of gain that confidence, because there was no customer, there was no someone watching on my back. If I broke it, it was going to the trash anyway. And so I got to see a lot of how a lot of these different systems from different manufacturers were put together. And sometimes it would be screws, plastic latches, metal latches, all sorts of different things. Additionally, while doing it, I was able to kind of test my own identification skills. Point out, okay, CPUs here, chipboards here, motherboards go here, optical drives, hard drives, power supplies, RAM. Taking all these components apart was just practice for me at identifying. The standard run-ins that we do is a general procedure that GTI does on basically any machine that comes into the business. This includes kind of a hardware diagnostic as well as a suite of antivirus and anti-malware. This is following the principle of fix the most simple thing first. If you spend a whole bunch of time trying to figure out why a computer keeps crashing and then you realize, oh, it's just the RAM, you've wasted a whole bunch of time that could have been saved by a simple diagnostic. And so I kind of took over this responsibility of connecting the machines, setting them up on the company network and accessing those diagnostic tools. Another task that I wasn't really given but that I kind of integrated myself into was any sort of hardware replacement that GTI had ongoing. Periodically things go bad, and the good and bad thing about current components is that they are pretty much cheaper to replace than they are to repair. This is good because it's easier, it's faster, it's quicker. You just copy the information over and then the customer can walk away that same day. The bad thing for me is that I didn't get to see, inside a hard drive or how these things work. So, but I did get a lot of experience replacing hard drive, replacing RAM, replacing laptop screens that have been cracked, and assisting in those replacements. The fourth thing, the general service progression, is pretty much a company-wide mandatory task. When you go back into the back, there'll be at least 10 machines sitting on the workbenches needing work, and if you try to fix one, finish it, take it out to the customer, and then go on to the next one, you'll never get finished. So you have to be able to understand where in the service progression each machine is and what they need doing to it as well. So into that comes all of those technical reading skills, which they'll each have a service team. Now, of course, those were the day-to-day kind of tasks, but there were the kind of exceptional cases which I always kind of like stuck around for. So we did have some hardware repairs going on. A client had that we had built the PC for actually had stopped working, and it turned out the capacitors on the motherboard had been overloaded and burnt out. And rather than replacing the whole thing, it was decided to just go ahead and fix those capacitors, which just means replace the capacitors, but we'll count that as repair because there was soldering used. There was also a unique operating system that we'd never seen before. Someone brought in a server with a RAID 1+0 on it that one of the hard drives had crashed and they needed data retrieval. And this operating system called Citrix was something nobody had ever seen, nobody knew about it. It was Linux based, and nobody could really figure it out either. And they didn't want to do anything that would delete that data. There's that fear coming in. So I kind of sat in the store for a little while until this manager said, hold on, why don't I just kind of connect a hard drive with XP on it, and maybe I'll be able to see those different partitions and recover the data that we need. And he was able to do so. And this kind of showed me that, there's always that little bit of fear that you don't want to mess up something you don't know about, but it's also that you're never going to know anything. These people have been working in this industry or even this store for 10, 20 years sometimes. So there's always that ongoing battle of continually educating yourself. And it's nothing to be ashamed about that you've never seen something before. It's just an opportunity for you to educate yourself on it. One of the other cool things that I saw actually my last week there was with the release of Windows 10. A lot of the general public had upgraded, and with that a lot of the general public had experienced some bugs and issues. And some of these, while some of these were not so bad, but some of these were you couldn't use your computer anymore. One of them, the screen would constantly flicker and you could not see anything underneath. So we had a lot of users bringing computers that day, and it was interesting to see that the general public was kind of split 50-50 between those that wanted the problem fixed and keep Windows 10, and those that wanted the problem fixed and go back to their earlier operating system that they were comfortable with, that they knew worked. And it kind of showed you why that the corporate business model is to kind of stick with what you know works. Even if it might be a little bit faster or offer more capabilities, wait until it's tested out, wait until all the bugs are gotten rid of, wait until it's reliable before you jump ahead. So coming out of GTI, I got a lot of things that I not necessarily was planning on getting, particularly with the fact that they had 10 or 20 computer systems in the back working at one time. I got a lot of practice in time management. This is something that, as explained before, if you try to do one thing at a time, you'll get behind and you'll never get anywhere. So you have to be able to not only understand what is going on for each of those cases, but be able to plan your actions around how long each of those waiting tasks will take. And so it's a day-to-day thing where you have to be able to understand, I can do this in 5 minutes, this will take one hour to run, this will take 20 minutes, and plan out your day accordingly. One of the other things that I wasn't expecting so much was my practice for my logical troubleshooting skills. This is particularly important when it comes to the systems that perhaps had not been fixed by the typical running, the hardware diagnostic and the antivirus and anti-malware. I had one that was constantly opening the Google Chrome web browser, and we run the diagnostics and it didn't fix anything. And so looking at that, you think, okay, this is a software problem. So we tried uninstalling Google Chrome, and it would start doing it with Internet Explorer. And I kind of noticed that this laptop had a keyboard shortcut key for the web browser, and kind of putting two and two together, that it kind of migrated from default browser to default browser, and that while pressing that button, those constantly opening windows would kind of stop for a bit. I thought maybe this is a sticky key, or there's some dirt underneath. I actually told my thoughts to one of the technicians there, and he agreed. We took it to the hardware room, and we took it apart, cleaned underneath that key a little bit, put it back together, and it was working fine. On the other side, I had a laptop that had Google Chrome was opening and working, but with a red tinge. And my initial thought was, okay, that's going to be like graphics card, right? So graphics card ran through the diagnostic, it worked fine. Drivers were all up to date. So then maybe this is part of the Chrome web browser. A simple uninstall and reinstall fixed it. So it's important to be able to follow that logical troubleshooting, to understand not only what the problem is, but what could cause that problem, and then what you should do to fix it. If you try to fix everything at once, you're not going to be able to do it in a timely manner. And then I did gain that understanding and that experience and confidence that I wanted out of it. I feel confident that I could help a family member or a friend with their problems. I have in fact taken apart mine and my wife's PCs for cleaning and run a lot of those diagnostic tools on them just to speed them up a little bit. I would definitely say that I have met my goals in this program, and would recommend GTI as an internship opportunity to another potential student. However, I would say that it's towards a specific student, one that, similar to me, perhaps does not have the background or experience in this field, and is looking to kind of build up their confidence and get that level of understanding. Perhaps if they had already worked in the industry for a bit, they would not be able to get as much out of this opportunity as someone else. So thank you for listening to my oral presentation. If you have any questions or comments, can be reached at the email address posted on the bottom of the screen. Thank you.